Today's video is all about how a healed dismissive avoidant might look. Hey everyone, I'm Sonia, and on this channel I give you tips and strategies to have the fulfilling lives and relationships that you want. If you want to check out a coaching consultation, check that out below. I'm happy to help with anything from healing attachment styles, which is more around the subject of this video, to working on limiting beliefs, or anything else to strategize in your life. So the last video I did was about how a healed AP, Anxious Preoccupied, might show up, how they would look after they are healed. And as I said in that video, some of this is about how the personality of the person is influenced by their original attachment style. And so some of that's going to stay the same. They're still the same person, but now they're someone who is able to interact and have relationships in a much healthier way, along with other things, just in terms of how they're feeling too, of course, right, and behaving and other aspects like that. So how would this be for someone who's dismissive avoidant? So I'm just going to go through some very specific things. Really, this is all interacting, of course, and interwoven into the big picture of this person and how they now see him, or how they now show up, or how they now interact. But it can be helpful to sort of look at the different pieces, because you can sort of see how it shifted and how it created this new big picture that's sort of the same, but different and healthy now when you do that. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to mention is that they go from this limiting belief that often can sort of be a core wound as well deep down about not doing things right. This limiting belief, I'm not good at relationships, which so many dismissive avoidants have. I'm not good at relationships. That becomes, right, this self-fulfilling prophecy as they tend to withdraw from engagement, or, take things as more criticism than they're meant and things like that, because of having that as a core wound or limiting belief. And so they go from that, I'm not good at relationships, to being someone who understands that they don't have that kind of responsibility, that they don't have that kind of responsibility for doing something perfectly, for, that they're just going to do it wrong. And that instead the relationship and the interaction is about figuring things out. So they go from that sort of mentality of automatically going to do it wrong, which has a level of perfectionism in it in a way, and like responsibility, and the responsibility is only on them, to understanding that, sometimes things aren't perfect, but it's not like their fault, and they don't have to take it that way as things are being figured out. And then, so secondly, because of that limiting belief going away, they're able to engage in the relationship and in relationship communication much more than they were before. And so that can, be around negotiation, it can be around other kinds of communication. But they're going to be able to show up and engage much more. And so that's still, here's where it comes up, that they're not like suddenly a different person. That doesn't mean they're going to be like maybe as connective a person as an anxious preoccupied person is, but they will be able to do it more than they were before. And it's still going to be in their own flavor. So it's still as a dismissive avoidant, and dismissive avoidants often like communication to be logical, clear, they want to understand what's expected of them, that kind of thing. So that's all still going to be true. So some of my other videos, sometimes I'm talking about how, your partner doesn't always have to heal from their attachment style. If you do the work yourself, and then you're shifting the communication, as long as they're showing up to a certain extent, which most people do when things shift, and they're mostly still right there with you, shifting with you, and what you change changes the dynamic. So they could even be not healed or not completely healed, and you can still there still can be the truth that a dismissive avoidant will prefer, if you can be clear with them and direct and that kind of thing. That's still going to be true all the way through. So now they're maybe engaging more, but they're still going to appreciate direct communication. But how that might look is that they understand more that things are negotiable. So another thing I'll say is that within that, they'll understand that it's okay to show up and in a way that's manageable for them, and that's okay to ask for. So rather than it just being immediately that they might withdraw or not try because they feel like they're doing something wrong if they're not just acceding to whatever you say, but that doesn't feel right for them, they'll understand, because they're understanding that it's a negotiation, that they can ask for that. They can, if they need more alone time, as DAs often do, they can ask for that as part of the negotiation, and it doesn't have to immediately jump to there's something wrong with them that they're feeling internally, but usually not expressing if they're unhealed, right? But that's what's going on internally. Okay, another thing that changes for a healed dismissive avoidant is that they understand that co-regulation is a thing. And, I want to mention here, by the way, that not all of these will be true for every healed dismissive avoidant. These are just all possibilities for how it can show up. I would say generally engaging more and not doing that withdrawal about the core wound. That's a big one for everyone. But something like this, could be different for different people. But a lot of dismissive avoidants will understand better how co-regulation is a thing, how we can, be when we're, like whether it's through touch or whether it's through just, being there for someone else, it can help us to regulate, and we can do that, sort of as a team. And it's all really part of understanding as they heal for dismissive avoidant that independence isn't lost through interdependence, and that interdependence can be such a wonderful thing. It doesn't mean dependence, like your partner suddenly you believe in independence and your partner is dependent on you, which can be often the way it looks with a dismissive avoidant in a relationship, is that because they are used to independence and thinking of it in a certain way and familiarity with it, they can sort of not understand that interdependence isn't one person being dependent on the other. And so that's part of where that co-regulation comes in as well. With regard to boundaries, a healed dismissive avoidant will understand and act in a way that reflects this understanding that really big, huge boundaries right at the beginning are usually not necessary. Only in like rare cases is that necessary. Usually boundaries can be adjustable as they go along. So they don't have to say, I'll never do this kind of thing. I'll never help you with this. I'll never go to this kind of thing if I don't like that kind of social interaction, if they would want to try it, because they can negotiate more on a lot of things because they understand that just because they're trying this one time, that doesn't mean they can't still, not do it later. They can understand just how flexible and changing boundaries can be, and that we're allowed to do that, right? We're allowed to have the boundaries change as we go. And as they're used, that also comes along with just being used to communicating more and actually negotiating more. So that feels more comfortable to do that. But yeah, so I can go from these really big, hard boundaries to having more flexible and changing boundaries. And I'll just bring in needs here as a sort of another flavor of that, which is that needs for a healed dismissive avoidant can also be more flexible, right? So they'll just know that they can express needs more often, that their needs are okay to express, and that there's nothing wrong with them for them having them. And so there can be more of a negotiation and flexibility that goes on along with expressing needs, but that are also expressed more regularly. And then finally, a dismissive avoidant who's healed may very well still not feel like sort of vulnerable conversations or that kind of conversation is their favorite thing by any means, but they're likely to do more of it than they were before. And that is because it just feels safer. They're a little more used to doing it as they do negotiation and sharing of needs, but also as they do it, it gets safer and safer and more familiar. And so again, their personality is still going to be different. That may not be their favorite thing, that kind of intimacy and vulnerability, but it will happen to some extent more than before they were healed. So hopefully this was helpful to get sort of that big picture of how a healed dismissive avoidant is still the same person, still has the flavors of their personality that are the same, but can show up in these ways that have changed and are more effective for having healthy relationship and interactions, and in other ways for their lives as well. And I'd love to hear in the comments if you are a healed dismissive avoidant or you know one and you have anything to add to this. I'd love to hear it.